Greetings, valued poll listeners, and welcome to episode 109, which I got correct this time. Some of you probably saw the note last time, but that's fine. It's episode 109 because I know where I am now, I promise, of the Poll List podcast, a bi-weekly show about comics, pop culture, and faith. My name is Chris Poirier, and with me, as always, is the one, the only, as seen on DC's The Swamp Thing. Hector's like, he's still saying that. You still got your credit, right?
No,
Uh, oh no.
that's not up
Uh,
on IMDb anymore.
Never mind. It never happened. It's Mandela effect. It never happened. Um, oh well. But we do talk about comics, pop culture, and faith here. And when IMDb takes credits away from Hector, it's a very sad day.
I would rather have my Blue Like Jazz credit back, but whatever.
That's right. And for those of you that are just joining us, this is literally the conversation every time we mention it. But it's good to be back. As I said last episode, now back into the swing of things. So we're here to talk about all the lovely comicses and things. Hector, I think I just wanted to bring it up again because I thought it was cool that during the election day you had two DJ at the poll things, and that
I
DJing at the polls is a thing. So forget rock the vote. This seems way cooler.
so DJs at the Polls is a nonpartisan organization that hired 4,000 DJs to be at I want to say close to 8,000 or no 11,000 sites.
Oh, dang.
So
Oh, that means almost all of you played at least two different sites.
and then some of us did three sites.
Three. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a long day.
It was a long day, and it was a long day just with two sites because I drove an hour and a half to get to where I was going. Did a 4 hour set, wandered around, and then did another 4 hour set. But yeah, it was good. And they gave us generators that are 100% silent.
That's dope.
And the generator was strong enough to power a speaker, a soundboard, my laptop, and lights for 8 hours and not go below 70%.
Dang.
Um, like it's still got like 10 hours of charge on it easily. Um, but
That's pretty cool.
it's a $650 generator, and they
Mm.
said we're gonna hold $100 of your pay as deposit,
Ooh. Okay.
and here's all the shipping stuff, but we recommend you just keep it, take the $100 for the $650 generator, and if we know that you have the generator, we'll hire you for other events so we don't have to send you one.
What?
So I got paid a large sum of money, and because I got a distance pay, I effectively paid $50 for a $650 generator. Um,
It's kind of dope.
it's a good adulting decision. Um,
There you go. So you got to do something cool and it was adulty. So I guess that's two wins because usually those two things don't happen simultaneously.
no, not together.
Usually adulting means you paid a great deal of money for the experience. And you're like, wow, that hurt a lot. Why did I do that? And someone goes to make better character, builds character. No,
I'm over character.
no, stop. Oh, that's awesome. I dig it. With everybody deciding how crazy the election was and everything, there's a positive story for you all, fam.
But I'll also
There's good
say
in the world.
my second site was pseudo pointless.
Oh, that sucks.
It was in
Womp womp. Never mind.
it was in the middle of nowhere.
Mm,
Um, I would say that maybe 40 voters came.
wow.
I was there for 4 hours, and I was there to the point where it was dark and moisture was settling on all my equipment. And I'm literally in a field of signs, no voters coming,
Busting out those jams.
busting out those jams to the strobe effect of my lights, just like, okay. But, democracy.
Democracy. It works. Uh oh well. It happened. It's a thing.
It is.
It is a thing. And My only other election point is that this election fell on November the 5th, so we all got to like wear out our V for Vendetta memes on that day. So you're welcome. Alan Moore said things. He's
No,
probably
he
right.
didn't. No,
Didn't, but he didn't. No, he's still out in the woods somewhere yelling at a goat.
accurate.
Half of you just went, "What?" Nope, Google that. You're welcome. Uh yeah, maybe we should talk about the comics.
Let's talk some comics.
Let's talk about the comics. So that you know what time it is. So strap yourselves and prepare yourselves for we've got comic sign.
Better put the word out. Get ready for the nerd out. Better put specs on. Better bring next on. I cut handsome checks for my expansion sets. They call me Obi-Wan. Act like you know me, son.
So good. Not a hologram still. But you might never know because AI is super good now. We only have 5 years worth of my voice that they can like rip off and try to reproduce and tell ChatGPT to give you answers about comic books each week. We're doing this wrong. Maybe we don't even need to do this anymore. That wouldn't be fun. On today's episode of the Pull List, we have a great show for you. We're going to talk about the latest news that you need to know. I have a cool data type thing to talk about because I'm a nerd like that. Um, our poll recommendations from the past 2 weeks that actually are within the last 2 weeks, and our favorite new number ones. Hector and I might share some common ground this week. Aw. This is the Pull List Podcast. Caffeine. Good. We still record in the morning, folks. It's still a thing. So news. I actually found something that's like faithy and like comicky and weird at the same time. I don't know if you saw this in the notes before or if you saw this in your travels, but um the Vatican, as in Big C Catholic Church, is going to their first comic convention.
They've been. It happened.
Right. So, and it's because they come up with a mascot for, oh, I'm gonna mess this up.
Did we not cover the mascot last time?
I don't remember talking about it
Okay.
because and if we did, then I kind of want to revisit it more because now that I've seen like the character and everything, because I'm like, oh, you kind of thought about this and stuff. And I was
Yeah.
right. It's for Jubilee. Um,
The year Jubilee. Yeah.
Yep. And it was a Japanese artist that lives in Italy. So it's a very anime type based character, but it's a character wearing a yellow raincoat with blue hair, green boots, some dirt on the boots and a walking stick and their rosary. And they kind of broke down the whole thing that all the colors are the Vatican's flag. Um, but they specifically basically did the weathering the storm is the kind of motif of the thing. So that's why it's a rain jacket and like the mud boots and everything. But the muddy boots are because, the travel through the storm is, well, it's dirty, it's messy, it's not easy and all that stuff. But, we're going to make it because the character like also has a smiling, um, like thing of it's good, we're going to make it. And, the name is basically the Italian word for light. So be light in the world when things are complicated and everything. And I was like, oh, like this. Like I kind of wanted to make fun of it, and then I kind of like
Well,
absorbed the whole thing and went, "That's kind of okay."
well, it is the Buddy Christ, just in a cute version.
Right? And hmm. Yeah,
Because here's what you can do
I
to
can't
know.
unsee that.
Here's what you can do to know for a fact it's the Buddy Christ.
Okay, go on. Some of you
Take
need to watch some movies, but continue.
which that's actually coming back out this year now that he has the rights for it.
Yeah, thank God.
Um, take the news brief that you were reading this
Mm.
from, and in your mind hear it in George Carlin's voice.
Right, right, right. So,
And, and if it sounds like the Buddy Christ speech, then it's the Buddy Christ.
we're
Um,
trying to be more approachable to the younger generations and much more friendly
in an
content.
effort to win today's youths, we don't want a Jesus who's smug and looks downtrodden. He gives you the heebie-jeebies. No,
No.
we want a Jesus that's there for you, that says, "Hey, it's okay." Like that's loose. That's loose, and
It's
it's fine.
loose. Be
That's
light.
fine.
Be light.
Um, but so some things you might have missed out on Loose. Just if you're just now hitting the tread with her, there is
Mm.
a wave already of a ridiculous amount of fan art from big artists.
I did see one or two things actually because after I saw it, I went to the X, the formerly Twitters, and noticed additional fan art already, and I was kind of like, huh. I was like, straight up, like no shade on all of our Catholic friends, but I haven't seen the Vatican be that active in the social medias, like, and not be apologizing for something.
Right. Fair. And so like Simon, who does the word for word Bible comic,
Yeah. Mhm.
he dropped a full print size piece that's Loose Vampire Slayer.
Maybe that's the one I saw because obviously you see their stuff a lot. So
Yeah. Um, but at the Lucca Con, which
yes.
was the big Italian con, you can at their they've got a, let's say, 4 foot 4 story tall balloon of Gear 5 Luffy from One Piece,
Yeah.
and directly beside it is a 1 story tall balloon of Luce. So she didn't just show up at her first con. She ate. she she showed up and she's like literally got a position next to Luffy.
Nice.
And
It's so good because I make this comment a lot as a quasi old man in a young man's game. One of the first comments on Bleeding Cool is literally the how do you do, fellow kids?
yeah, with the
They,
Steve Buscemi me.
Steve
Yeah.
Buscemi. Yeah. It's like, yeah. But at I at least look at it and go, hey, you did a thing that wasn't quite you didn't go full cringe on the Buddy Christ, and you did a thing. And I'm always here for when people of faith like actually are. We have tons of folks that are people of faith that are creatives and they actually do cool things, and we don't always get to talk about those things. So hey, just for those of you that are keeping track, this is a podcast about pop culture and faith. There it is. We did it. We nailed the tagline. Run the credits. We're out.
I will say it genuinely is. It's not a bad design. It's not a bad choice. It's pretty
No.
handled well.
And even like going back and walking through the iconology, which a lot of creatives will do, why they chose colors, why they chose design things, like they all line up to like it's not like you jam this square peg in a round hole. Like this all makes sense.
Well, and one of the things that, and I know it's going to be a a, a deep cut. You
Mm.
remember that comic book that I really liked that nobody else ever heard of, Steeple?
Yes.
Guess what she's wearing on like the cover?
Yeah, it's a rain jacket, isn't it?
It's
Or
a
like
yellow
the hoodie
rain
or something.
jacket. It's a yellow rain jacket.
They probably
And
had no idea. Or that is a super deep cut that's really smart.
if they did that, that is a super deep cut. But that's literally the first thing I saw. I was like, oh, somebody did fan art of Steeple. And then I was like, oh wait, no, this isn't that.
Well, sort of. J Jesus did it. That's weird.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Well, the Vatican did a thing, and I mm, golf clap. So yeah, that was a thing. I don't have a ton of news, so I wanted to hit that and more discussion-y stuff this week. But I think that's good. So people are going to want to dive into the show notes for this next thing that I want to talk about. But I am a data nerd when it comes to comics and things, and having been a former retailer and all that. Like numbers are what drive how we FOC, how we actually decide what comics are going to go on our shelves and whatnot. And that's also based on, our internal sell-through numbers of certain things. But I've said in the past, the challenges of FOC generally are we have to start selecting issues 2 and 3 of a book before issue number 1 even hits our shelves, which means we don't have sell-through. And so doing comic book math, as it is known, is usually just hard. And in the past, it's almost entirely been driven by diamond sell through numbers and SKUs and all that because there are only three, count them, three, uh, 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 um, distributors that actually have point of sale systems that are kind of the most significant in the comic book space. So there's not a ton of different sources that you can get data is the short end of this, and or it's only been single source for so long. Adam Freeman, who I had the pleasure of getting to know over the years, as he was one of the senior marketing guys for Valiant. Um, well, I was still in retail, and is one of the reasons that I will forever and always be a Valiant fan, though it's just been super hard over the last year, as we've said, as Adam and Dinesh and that team that he built during that time period are all gone. But I say all this to say all of them are reshaping the comic book industry wherever they have landed. Whether
Which
it's
is,
Dinesh,
how you know that there's talent, not just
yep.
circumstance.
So, Dinesh with Bad Idea, Adam followed him to Bad Idea. Adam also runs his own consultancy, which is where I'm going to focus today because he's like, he is a former retailer even before he went into the publishing and distribution side. Hunter Gordonson is, I believe, he's at Boom now, which is like, well, guess what? There's a reason things are really crushing over there, and that he's one of the people that is behind the scenes over there over the last couple of years as well. So, for folks that know the deep cut of Valiant, know that a lot of them during the heyday of the revitalization of Valiant are now still reshaping and doing cool things. But Adam's a data nerd too, and he's decided that since the decentralization of distribution during COVID, and we came up with all these different distributors, so with Lunar and Penguin and everybody jumping in and Diamond not becoming the sole source, that the numbers at Diamond are now complicated because they're not the sole source of sell through anymore. And he mentions in this article about how we used to base things against the Batman number, which Batman usually is the number one sell through week to week to week to week, that DC just owns that. Um, so you usually order stuff in comparison to how many people are going to come stare at my Bat Family wall and buy a bunch of those books. And so that's how you know if a Batman book sells through at 250,000, you know, quarter million um, books. If you got books that are selling between 50 to 100,000, you're doing pretty good, comparatively speaking. But that doesn't actually tell us, do people actually like these books other than that they're buying them? And we get into this discussion of, do we care? Number one, as retailers, because if we're selling it, we're selling it. It's money. But Adam's actually setting out to try to create a sell-through model that actually kind of takes fans' input and their buy-through together. And he's secured some data sets from one of the big three companies. So it's about 25% of the overall market share. And they're going to start basically crunching numbers and creating scores week to week so the retailers can actually kind of get a vibe for sell through, but also the general vibe of, no, we kind of like this, which means we can guess a little better on FOC going forward. It's super nerdy, so that's why I say read the article, and because it's an interview back and forth with Adam, and if he gets it closer to, I think he said next year is kind of his goal to start piloting it and everything. Adam's a dude I can probably get to come and talk more about it because he loves talking about comics and his time in retail and all that good stuff. But that's kind of my nerdy thing for folks is there's so much guesstimation and throwing darts at a wall in comic book retail in an industry where if you don't sell it the first week, it's basically dead. Which is really tough on retailers when money's tight and everything. So having more tools to be able to figure out why people actually buy things is super good.
So on that note, like on guests and things, I forgot to mention this while you were away.
Well,
The
you were out.
the author of the book Stan Lee Lied
Mm.
um reached out to want to be a guest.
Ooh. Ooh. Mm. That. There's a lot there. Um. Wow. Yeah, I'll have to dig through that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't do that, but
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Stan wasn't perfect, but also, my final kind of thing for the news, because I thought it was interesting. We could probably spend an entire show on it. We probably shouldn't, but um, someone over at CBR actually basically wrote the op-ed on, does DC need to just kill Bruce Wayne and put a new Bat person in the bat suit? And if you just saw that headline and that was all that was behind the article, I'd say that is the most clickbaity thing I've seen in a hot minute in comics. Um, but then backed it up with, but some of the really great Batman stories over the last 2 to 3 decades have come when Bruce Wayne wasn't the one under the cowl. And I stopped and went, he's not wrong. So I changed it into kind of the, because I kind of just want your opinion, because I know we're both DC fans, but I know you live in that universe probably a foot deeper than I do. Of what do you think? Are they right? It is 80 years a good run for Bruce Wayne, and we can just move on and point to these examples, or is Batman more powerful when we visit those types of stories every now and then, but still come back to center, if you will, on the character?
I think
Yeah.
the thing about the not being centered on Batman, the last good not Bruce story I read on my memory is the Grant Morrison Dick Grayson Batman run.
Yep.
So I wouldn't say there's a lot of content there.
Fair.
Um Past that, um I don't think the problem is that we need less Bruce.
Mm.
I think the problem is we need people that actually understand the character.
Mm.
Because a lot of people that write Batman poorly don't get Batman fully. And I'm not saying that it's that big of a thing, but like I don't feel like they take the full depth that can be with the character,
Mm.
and they just give you the jump the shark meme version of the character.
I'm broody. I don't use guns, but I am Batman.
I rode a busted piece of rocket ship and into the Earth's atmosphere. That, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, that's fair. And because I mean, after they make this point, the counterpoint, or it's not really a counterpoint, but it's a continuation of the point is because basically we got this whole Bat family that has a bunch of really cool characters, and why do we always got to focus on Bruce Wayne? I'm like, okay, if that's actually your point, that's a fair argument. But
But
does that mean
but
putting someone else under the
all
cowl?
the other family characters have their own books.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I,
You know who doesn't have their own book right now?
hmm.
Jason Todd,
Sorry.
Red Hood.
I stopped and then I was like, oh wait, I already know where this is going.
Yeah. Uh
You're not
Damien's
upset.
got a book, but
Damon's
not
got a
Jason.
couple books right now.
Right. Dick's got a
Damien's
couple
the
books.
worst.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to talk about this.
Uh-oh. I
Have
derailed
you
news. I'm sorry.
Okay, also just throw out this statement. Eddie Brock is now Carnage. Look that up. Um
Fine.
uh have you noticed in other DC comic readers that just in the last year they've started more melanating Damien?
No, but now I want to look.
You need to look at the last like 5 months of covers and such. And
Huh.
there's like they're giving Damien more of a Talia complexion, of a darker brown, so that he stands out
Hmm.
from the others. And like, especially, I saw a cover recently that had, or an art piece recently that had all the Robin boys, and he was a whole different shade.
Hmm. Now, granted, given on his mother, that's kind of a whoops.
Yeah, but here's the thing: why are we doing it now
Yeah.
and not in 2000, like 8 or 9 or whenever he dropped? Because Grant Morrison's run was a hot minute ago,
It's true.
and while I do get we can settle into our complexions at times, it's like, hey, let's capitalize on a smidge of diversity in the Robins.
Oof.
And that's what it felt like. But like, I noticed like a trend lately of certain artists, certain covers, certain art pieces. Damien's a shade darker than he used to be. There's nothing wrong with it. It does track with his history, but like weird flex.
It- yeah, that's an interesting point. We do, oh, editorial decisions can be weird at times. Because you're right. It's not so much that it's happening, it's that the timing of it is a thing.
Because I just feel like that should have been an out the gate situation.
It's fair. Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. And Eddie Brock is now Carnage.
Andy Brock is now Carnage.
And that's what you need to know. Our bi-weekly look at the industry. Yeah, you like that? And delivering you the inside knowledge. As always, you can join in on the conversation with Hector and I and all of your nerdy friends on the Love Thy Nerd Discord and begin your geeky adventure together with us. Tell us what you liked, what you hated, or possibly what we missed. We probably missed a ton of stuff that happens from time to time because comics be comics, which means stuff happens at the speed of light, or it'll take 2 years to get around to finishing it. There's no in between. That's how comic books work. But let's get to it. Let's get to why the people pay us the money that they don't pay us and talk about some comics.
That's why we
You,
DJ at empty poll sites
we DJ at empty poll
to pay for
sites,
these comics.
and I go out there and work them streets, not in the way half of you just thought. Get your mind out of the gutter. Um, yeah, so let's talk about those books. Your list is like interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. And mine is literally like always all over the place. And I will say right now, for all of you that question Hector and mine integrity, I absolutely read Iron Man #1 and no. Moving right along.
Yeah, I had my share of Marvel reads too. So, um,
Like I'm still gonna give you a chance every time, Marvel, but dang it, give me something I'm happy
and
about.
why does it feel like it's taking forever for Uncanny X-Men to drop?
Valid. Maybe I will feel better once that drops. All right, hit it. Get us started.
Okie dokie.
Here, here for the party.
I will start out with and you don't have to do much to sell me on things, just for the kicks and giggles. But there's a
Fair.
book called FML,
What does that stand for?
Full Metal
Beep.
Lasso.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Oh, this is side news. Look,
Ooh.
Ted Lasso is now the first Apple TV product in physical media.
Huh. Nice.
You can get the entire series called Ted Lasso: The Richmond Way in one box set. God
Oh.
bless you and your family.
Mm.
But FML. Um, Now, a couple weeks ago when Todd was around, I complained about a book that I read that was like purely satanic. Like
There's
literally,
a couple. There's a couple out there.
like there was one that I picked up that literally was about sacrificing a woman to the devil in the woods.
I think I read that, and I kind of
Now,
came to. I was like, I read this.
yeah. Um,
That happened.
this is on a similar note, but not in a way I hate.
Well,
Um,
Pastor Pastor Hector was Pastor Hector.
yeah, there. So this is a
Uh,
lot
that's
more.
your vibe.
That's my vibe. This is a lot more. What's that one I loved about the ghost and the punk rock band?
Oh, dang it. Because that's what I was thinking as soon as you showed that to me, but now I'm absolutely blanking.
Uh, Something Houses.
Yeah, that I have the house part stuck in my head.
There's a
Uh,
comic book about ghosts and punk rock and a haunted house.
yes.
And Pilots. Is Pilots in it, or am I just 21 Pilotsing? Um,
No, I think that's one of the reasons you liked it. I'm going back through old notes to see if it pops out.
yeah, yeah. Either way, it's that vibe. Um, what is the name of that comic book?
I'm working on it.
Um, Homesick Pilots.
There it is. I just found it. Yep,
Yep.
Homesick Pilots. There you
Yeah.
go. You're welcome.
I was like,
This
I
is
know
why
those
this
words
is why
fit.
we take notes.
Yeah. This has a very homesick pilots vibe, but also not because it starts off looking like, oh, it's super punk rock, but then uh it turns into it's high school and middle school kids. One of them is the daughter of a former punk rock legend band from the 80s who's now a soccer mom. So her mom was like spray paint, safety pins and yeah.
Joan Jett legitimately bought a minivan.
Yeah, Joan Jett bought a minivan. And so this whole book focuses on an eclectic group of punk rock kids at school who want to form a band. And dude, some of the art goes from Homesick Pilots to Homestar Runner. There's literally Teen Girl Squad in this stuff. Um, like look at this, Teen Girl Squad. Um, and the whole thing is this group, and then it turns into basically Agatha all along of
Okay.
like it's punk rock. But one of them says we need to harness the power of witchcraft to make our punk rock more punk rocky. And
Down. What?
yeah,
Side note, I did see something on the internet that it's like no matter how much you liked Agatha's Road, that 90% of us agreed by the end if we heard the Witch's Road song one more time, we would throw something at the TV.
oh, absolutely. I've got friends though that live by that song now. Um, and so the whole thing is them,
Weird flex, but okay.
yeah. Uh, and there's even like Bill and Ted throwbacks.
Yeah,
Um,
this comic knows what it is.
this comic knows what it is. And so basically it's a setup and that they end up doing a ritual in the woods as just part of teenage shenaniganry and things
That
get
place.
weird.
Stuff gets, and that's when stuff got real.
And that's when stuff got real. And so the title of the book is FML, B, language, uh,
Language.
C, moderate to severe witchcraft. Um, but if you can, if you
Dot dot dot.
punk rock. So if this is your jam, it'll be your jam. If it's not, it won't be. Um, but I will say wholeheartedly, and
Just want to say that Hector was the cool youth pastor.
this was the most fun book I read this week, or for the last 2 weeks. There you go. Is it good theology? Oh no,
It's broken. Yep, got it.
it's broken, but dang it, it was fun.
But
It,
dang it, it was fun. Oh
all right, well,
wow.
what you got? What's one for you?
Yeah, so go throwing the ball back and forth here like one occasionally does. Red Coat number 7. I'm not sorry I've mentioned this literally like the past 3 episodes, which means one episode that occurred before I even left. Um Ghost Machine and their whole unnamed thing is just so I set this up. The guy was a British soldier during the Revolution, witnessed a bunch of our founding fathers doing some creepy stonemason stuff and became immortal. And during his journeys in his immortality, met the young Albert Einstein. And basically, it is this character and Albert Einstein's cheeky adventures um, through history. And you find out things like Benedict Arnold like is still alive and is another immortal and is still a creepy traitor dude, and that story plays out and everything. But this is clearly the end of the first arc of this story, and it's literally the main character, Simon Pure, and every book starts with the same thing. It says, "My name is Simon, though I'm anything but Simon Pure," and the joke is, "But I'm anything but," and
And
every single book,
my name is Simon, and
yeah,
I like to do drawings.
and that's probably not an accident, but the whole point of this book is Albert Einstein is old and is dying, and Simon is still Simon, and they kind of are recalling on their shenaniganry of the last, the first 6 things, and Albert dies because he's old. Simon's still alive, and so we're introduced to the immortal problem of I met friends along the way, and they're gonna
Doctor
die,
Who,
and
got it.
I'm getting right, and I'm gonna live forever. So I'm just like, oh, you get the feels because they write Einstein with a really horrific accent through the entire thing, and it's semi annoying, but at the same time, it's slightly endearing, and you're like, oh. But yeah, this is still interesting, and now I'm just curious who is going to become um his new companion, and it's kind of like the reverse that, or no, I guess it's the same problem. Yeah, it's a Doctor Who problem. So, but it's really good. It's Redcoat. The alternate history going on there is so broken that it's fun, and I'm not apologizing for it.
Nice.
You're welcome. Here for it.
Also, this was one of those struggle bus weeks to get 5 good books.
Yep. I have some that, well, I think my next one is basically going to be one of those. Hey, I read this. It's interesting, but sure, it happened. That's
I
that's what I got.
I'll say out of the dozen books I read 3 good ones.
That's pretty close.
I read 3 good books out of the dozen I purchased and read. And
And both of us read a couple of the same good books,
yes. All right, so up next, I'm going to throw out the Green Arrow Annual.
which I
This is
almost picked up and I talked myself out of because it said annual, and Hector's now going to tell you why Chris is stupid.
eh, um this is a pseudo standalone story for Green Arrow. It's Green Arrow in the future-ish on an island with kids and grandkids back on the island where Stephen Amell lives, and
Right? And never left.
never left. They're back on that island almost for vacation, living, in the trees and everything. And they want stories. So he tells that it's an anthology story almost of his encounters and failures to stop Firestarter through the entire course of his heroic journey. Um, uh, this was nice just to have read something fun in Green Arrow without being bogged down in a ton of weird backstory and exposition and stuff that doesn't feel like Green Arrow.
Like, I
Um,
love Green Arrow, but a lot of the writings over the last decade, that's the kind of thing is the no, just tell me a story.
yeah,
And it doesn't need to be soap opera. Please no.
there was a time when I want to say when Judd Winnick was writing Green Arrow, that Green Arrow was better than Nightwing. This is like, a decade ago.
I think
Um,
Nightwing and Green Arrow are literally those books for me. They're either on fire great or it's like, nope, I can skip it.
yeah. And Nightwing, the whole last run of Leaping into the Light up to the end, perfect. Chef's kiss, masterpiece. Um, it's been a long time since I could say that for a Green Arrow book. Um,
Yeah.
like Judd Winnick, Brad Meltzer, Kevin Smith. Um, Past that, I don't know what to tell you. Um,
It happened.
yeah, but this was a solid Green Arrow book, and you get to see like a whole Arrow army of grandkids and kids and all these things, and it's good. It was fun. It wasn't. I didn't feel like I hated reading it, and I didn't feel like I totally wasted my money. So if I got to give you 5 books out of the 12, this one's up
Here you
there.
go.
Here you go. It's one of them.
You did it.
Now, out of the 3 that I thoroughly enjoyed reading, that wasn't one, but it was okay.
But it was on the list.
It was on the
Congratulations.
list.
This is Chris and Hector's mediocre reads of mid of early November. All right. Um, so yeah, mine's kind of one of those. Hey, I read this book called Living Hell. See, sensing a trend for this week, are we? Um, sorry, not sorry. Because at first I was like, I don't like it, but as it kind of unfolded and I realized this is one of those books that gives you a ton of exposition and the last 3 pages are the point. I have a love-hate relationship with issue number ones that do that, but I also understand you just forced me to buy issue number 2, so good on you, I guess.
Yeah.
It follows this family. Father daughter have a close relationship because mom is actually working more than dad. The economy sucks. Mom's stressed out all the time. Dad's the cool dad, and but works at night. He's a bartender, and you just kind of see this whole thing. They drop this weird hint that mom's like a super conspiracy theorist because she says something about chemtrails like in the first 3 pages, and I'm like, what's going on here? Um, But you get to the end, and Dad's going home from work, and he runs into this crazy dude that's got these tentacle arms. There you go. That happened. Fights him, and tentacle dude's like talking in a language he can't really understand, but then says some cool like Victorian King James only type stuff. And the dad's
1611 edition.
yeah, 1611 edition. Um, and the dad kind of looks at him and does the cool, well, guess we're gonna dance. And using his mind, he tells the octopus dude to like cut off all of his own arms and he dies. And you go, what am I reading? And after that whole thing happens, like this dude shows up, old dude with a book, and is like, oh, cool. You did the thing, so you know what that means. And the dad's like, crap. And you're like, okay, book, time to tell the readers what's happening. And basically, the setup for this is you find out that dad was a demon, is a demon. That other dude is what's called a shepherd in this universe, and apparently he hunts demons. And when you kill one of them, you become them. And that's what bowler hat dude's there to say of, hi, guess what? You done screwed up now. And you're now the guy. And he killed his dog, who was a hellhound. And you're like, that's
Oh,
sad. But then he gets resurrected because every shepherd has to have a hellhound. So it's a happy ending. So dad goes home with his new dog, and they're like, oh, you got a puppy. And basically, mom freaks out because she finally realizes that she married a demon her whole life and that he lied to her. And he's like, yeah, but now I got like this job I didn't want. And she's like, so the conspiracy theories are true. So she runs away. And that's the setup of the first book. And I have no idea what's going on, but I'm at least kind of interested in where it's going now. So that's one of those. The second issue is going to tell me whether I actually care about that setup or not. But it's different. Um, I do different. What can I say? Um,
I
and
try and look for different, but then I get to a place I'm like, Chris would read that. And like,
and I like DC books, and I go, Hector's absolutely going to put that on his list, and that's about to happen. So buckle up.
yep. All right. So other book. Um, Wait, are we doing the number one thing now or
Now let's do that last, seeing
okay.
as we're gonna. Yeah, so I've got two more books, and you have two more
Three?
books. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I'm gonna put Poison Ivy on my list. Um, this is also not my top three. Um, but
It happened.
it has good moments. Um, there's a character named Sarah or Jane or Sarah Jane. Um, there's a character Janet. There we go. Janet from HR. Um, she literally is Janet from HR. Um,
Oh,
and through the course of these 27 issues, Janet from HR has been this weird situation where she's the puppy that followed Harley and Ivy home.
mm.
And some shenanigans took place between Harley, Ivy, and Janet at different respective times. And she's just this codependent, clingy person. So there's this whole story where eco-terrorism's happening. There's uh, a battle between Batman and Poison Ivy, and all these things are happening. And there's a bunch of people dressed like 21 Pilots fans, and it's weird. Um,
It's the only
but
reason I made it on Hector's list for today.
no, that would have been close. Um, but like, I'm just genuinely interested in why we're still getting a storyline about Janet from HR 20 issues later and why she's still around. And for the majority of the time, they didn't know her name, like Harley and Ivy, respectively, separately. And Harley just called her side quest. And that always just made me giggle. She like, come on, side quest. And
Oh,
that was my favorite thing. Um, Now, because Harley is no longer in the book and Ivy is busy dealing with 21 Pilots, um, Janet turns her attentions to Killer Croc for comfort, safety, and shenaniganry. And I'm
mm.
like, why is this happening and why is this the world and why is this in this book? And it was fun enough. And what was the last line in it? Because I was like, well, that's appropriate. Um
That checks out.
uh here's the, and I'll say this, the monologuing, the internal dialogue of what's going on is always better than the dialogue taking place in the bubbles. Like the narration.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
here's the narration on the last page. Monsters, heroes, activists, terrorists. And these cursed days, who can tell them apart? Maybe it doesn't matter. Only one thing is certain. Things are about to get very complicated. That's just like, I'm here for the exposition, and that's about it. So the exposition of those books and Janet from HR are why I still read Poison Ivy.
Darn it,
Oh,
Janet.
darn. And that, and I also feel awkward telling them to take books off my pools,
Right? It's like, oh.
which is why Fantastic Four is still on my list when he needs to
Hmm.
not be. Um, Here you go.
Sad noises. All right, I'm gonna do my last two so we can line up on the last one because one of these books doesn't require a lot of talking. Um, Sacrificers number 12. I think I left the last Sacrificers off because it was, I think I even mentioned it was starting to get kind of distracted. It's still kind of distracted, but I think it's working towards a conclusion now, finally. So maybe the last book was, to borrow a phrase, side questing a little too hard. Um, this one's kind of starting to wrap up the main um, forces of evil that are jamming up against each other. So if you've been following along with the sacrificers thing, if it's not coming to a close, then I'm just confused. But I feel like it's finally kind of getting to the point where this was a book that had a lot of setup getting to what's even happening, and now we're just kind of finally playing out the end of this kind of romp. So Rick Remender continues to do his thing. Then my last regular book, which is a number one, and then Hector and I are going to talk about a thing that shouldn't surprise anyone. But JSA, which is a word that I never thought was going to hit my lips anytime soon, but Hector nodded his head because he knows why I read it, and it's because Jeff Lemire is writing it, which a feels super weird. Um, but here we are. Um, and we're all in, baby. Um, and I'm gonna be able to make that joke for a long time. Thanks, DC. Um, but when the first page looks like that, so all of you in podcast land went like, "What?" You're gonna have to buy it and find out, or click subscribe on YouTube. Um, I really dug the art in this book, which DC's got a lot of books out right now that I put down very quickly because, frankly, I do not like the quality of art. Sorry, not sorry. I am one of those comic book readers that art can pull me out too quick. And when you look super 90s in a bad way, like if you're Rob Liefeld, big chest, no feet, I'm done. I can't suspend reality for that long. But this is just a fun story. And JSA is a ton of characters that a very large portion of comic book readers are probably like, who? Which means
Well,
read some
and a lot
JSA.
of this one is newer generation JSA too.
Yep. And it's a lot of the kids of or younger generation of, um,
It's the
which
ones
give.
that were on the Stargirl show.
Mhm. And, but they're looking for the old generation because something has occurred. And we see that back and forth. And there's a lot going on. And I'm being super vague about it because there's a lot going on and you probably should read the book. And there is kind of a twisty twist at the end. But what's kind of fun is you get the JSA, and the only thing that I will give you, like the spoiler, not spoiler, is you are reminded that there is an injustice society as well. And so you have these big things that are clashing up in the DC universe. So Lemire jumping on a book that A isn't very Lemire, but also is like super deep cut DC, and it's a fun comic read that if you're a comic book nerd, is going to make you want to probably find out who a lot of these characters are, which means you now have a ton of extra stuff you can read. You're welcome. Like, what? You you made me like JSA.
I
Um,
I read it.
it's
I,
just a lot.
it's a lot, and that's the thing. It's very much. It was almost like Alan Moore writing JSA. Like,
Mm.
um, there was just a lot of
There's a lot of emotions here, which
there's a
is
lot
very
there's a
Lemire.
lot of exposition dialogue. There's a lot
Yep.
of setting big things up, and
Yep. That's the thing with JSA or Justice League in general of sometimes those books are overwhelming because everybody's a main character and there's like nine of them.
I felt like it had more dialogue than heart,
That's fair, which is kind of a
and
Lemire thing.
which is kind of a Lumiere thing. Um, so yeah, there you go. I didn't hate it, but
He's like, didn't hate it.
it, Poison Ivy was more fun.
That's fair. All right, let's get to the main event, I suppose. Um, do you want to do your actual number one first and we end on the other thing,
Sure,
or
yeah.
yeah, all right.
All right, my number one was the Batgirl number one.
Which I'm going to tell you right now, I liked as well, but I absolutely knew when I read it that Hector was going to choose it.
Yeah, one. Love Cassandra Cain. Haven't had a
Yep.
good Cassandra Cain book in forever. Um, and there's not a lot of sales pitch you need to put to this.
The art is good.
The art's good. Lady Shiva shows up
Yep.
with the complicated mother relationship with her and Cassandra.
Yep.
And there's a cult of ninjas that wants to kill Cassandra and Lady Shiva. And you deal with the internal dialogue and damage and struggle of Cassandra Cain with her mother relationship and
And they're
watching her
gonna
be a
have
full
to work
ninja.
it out together.
Yep, there you go. This whole book. Literally,
that's that's the tweet.
like Cassandra Cain, you don't need a lot of dialogue to make it effective.
Mm.
And
Ah,
um and this is a book of like her reading people's body language. And that's
right.
a good give and take, and it was fun. There you
It
go.
was fun. Good art, fun. That's another book I didn't think you would convince me to pick up a number two of Batgirl anytime soon, but I think they did.
Yeah, I'll put the rest of that on my subscription.
All right, Hector, I'm going to let you tie this one together because this is kind of in your wheel jam. But is anyone going to be surprised when we tell you that our shared number one slash number two slash, because did they both drop the same week or is it weekly? It must be weekly.
It's not even weekly, it's a couple weeks in between.
Okay.
Or maybe it is, I don't know. I covered one on like episode 107.
Okay. I must have
Um
just missed it.
I didn't, that was the
During
one I didn't do notes for because
ah,
life.
I mean, I missed it in my store too because I've been looking for it.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, so Batman the Long Halloween, the last Halloween, because you had to have a really long title to write a sequel to
dude,
the Long
trying to get
Halloween.
that dude to put that on my subscription list was so confusing for him because he had to go through this whole computer system.
He's like, what the crap is this book called?
Yes, that's
It's called
exactly what happened.
Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween.
Because I didn't have it on my subscription list because he literally subscribed me for the long Halloween.
Yeah, you gotta love Diamond that technically you can take stuff that is forever ago because you can, yeah, well,
Yeah.
there you go. I am a art because whenever you go to a sequel or doing something that you have already in your head, you have an expectation of what it's going to look like. I'm not disappointed. Um, some people are probably going to have a love-hate relationship with it because it's
Well,
kind
dude,
of
Tim
an
Sale's
old,
gone, and we just
yep,
have to.
and it's an older style, but it's pretty. Um,
It tries to
Klaus
stay within the long Halloween bubble.
and Klaus Janson, longtime anchor at DC and um cool Marvel stuff from that era. Klaus is a fun dude. I've got a bunch of his stuff, and he's usually come to the NC Comic Con over and over again. So I've enjoyed talking to him because he also did long runs on Daredevil and other stuff. But he's an inker, and inkers generally don't get like that's masthead for an inker. on the front page. So you don't see that a ton nowadays unless it's someone that, is a somebody. But I dig the parallels that they're doing here. And literally that we have this set up for, well, wait, Holiday's in jail, but we're seeing similar things here. And we're definitely doing the nobody is safe thing pretty early here. Of course, some of the people that have been attacked didn't die; they just were shot, or I don't know. There's I I dig the setup here, and James Gordon is never going to catch a break. And by James Gordon, I mean James Gordon Jr.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Them introducing James Gordon Jr. into the story was a nice touch. Um, Poor kid.
That kid literally is just like the punching bag of the DC universe as being a bad child and Jim Gordon being a terrible dad.
Man, he got killed by Batgirl.
Mhm. Well, and he was a psychopath,
Yeah,
and that entire so it's like um
he's Dexter with red
he's
hair.
he's literally Dexter, and dad tried to do the but I love you, son. But I do love that it's younger James when he's a kid, and that literally the setup for this is he dressed up as Batman, and that Mama Gordon absolutely hates that. Um and so the setup of this story obviously is he gets kidnapped.
It's a year after the Long Halloween.
Holidays in Arkham and is doing his best Hannibal Lecter. Um
Does this where would this fit in timeline with Dark Victory?
I'm not
You keep talking. No,
yeah, might have to because that's going to be some of this is where all this fits in timeline continuity. Yeah, I mean it's not full continuity, but we're in this whole all in Batman slash DC does the multiversey thing. So telling stories that are just good are good. But yeah, all these villains are having bad days. And that's why we're saying that it seems pretty clear that nobody's safe. Um and they did they did the boy Harvey Dent kind of cruel right off the bat. Um and then Penguin, Catwoman, like this list is piling up, and Holiday's in jail, but we're seeing Holiday like events taking place. So it's a good mystery so far. It's not obvious, or at least I don't feel like it's obvious. There's cool little hints along the way of things that are happening. There are parallels to what's going on, and Batman is trying to unpack it. And issue two, we literally kind of got that whole setup of him going to Arkham and Robin talking to Robin is doing his best Clarice. And like
Dark
I said,
Victory is a few months after Long Halloween. Said this
okay.
would be after Dark Victory.
Um, and I think it's kind of funny to have Holiday kind of doing the Hannibal Lecter thing of sowing doubt into Robin. Of course, there's that entire fun conversation of how come Robin isn't Robin Man. I just thought that was funny. It's like,
Yeah.
'cause that doesn't sound right.
Mm-mm.
It's like, why is everybody man, but you're not? Oh, the boy wonder. So I'm just here for the journey. Looks good. Story seems to be setting up pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it doesn't, because there was some follow up to Long Halloween a couple years ago,
Hmm.
and it didn't track well for me. This feels right.
This feels way better. And what was it? I was just thinking there's something else that's coming. Oh, yeah. Hush 2 is either going to be really good or not because they also kind of tried to jam that what was it? Shh character or whatever in between that I think you kind of had that same vibe of I see what you did there, but please don't.
Yeah, well, and that's in the end, that character did end up tying into Thomas Elliot. Um, but not in a it's my kid or anything like that. Like
Right.
she was like a medical intern or something under him. Um, but I don't know. And here's the problem is there have been a ton of Hush sequels.
Right.
Dustin Nguyen did one. There's one where he was living in a swamp in Louisiana, and it was weird. Um, we've seen stuff all over the place. So what they do with it will be interesting because there's been people who've touched it, but they've never quite struck gold with it.
Good stuff. So if you're looking for good Batman and
Oh, let me just say, I didn't enjoy this week's Batman.
mm,
Like the
I,
Zdarsky.
and it's his final arc, I've kind of felt the same thing, like it's lost the bubble, but we we stand by to see where Batman wraps up as he wraps up his final arc and all that good stuff. But in the meantime,
Like the just the thing of trying to find out who his brother is and stuff like this, and it's just like it's just kind of feels disjointed, but it is what it is.
I feel that reality. So definitely check out Batman: The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, because that's some good Batmans. That's right there. And well, that is in fact going to do it for us here at the Pull List Podcast. Episode 109 is now in the books and in your ears and in your eyeballs. It's true, we're on the YouTubes. If you haven't figured that out by now, you can see the dead air space when I get quiet, because I'm pointing at something, for yourselves. And you can see all of our lovely facial expressions, which are somewhat entertaining in and of themselves.
Mm.
But as many of you know, we don't take this epic journey of podcast and fandom alone. We do lots of amazing other podcasts. I mean, Hector's got like 17 other podcasts, here on the Love Thy Nerd podcast network. So be sure to visit lovethynerd.com for more info, previous episodes, and maybe find yourself a brand new show to listen and add to your nerdy routine. But wait, there's more. We have been telling you about the Glue network, and that is an app that you can download to your devices or your smart television sets, and you can put Hector and I on the TV, which is scary and cool at the same time. But you can check that out. You can download it in most of your favorite app stores and search for Love Thy Nerd, and that'll pop up, and you'll get all that cool faith-based nerdy content. But Hector and I do want to thank you from the very bottom of my heart, and probably Hector's heart. I can't speak for him. He's over there, all the way over there in North Carolina. But I bet it's true. Thanks for hanging out with us and choosing us as your primary comic book knowledge factory on a near weekly basis. So don't leave us hanging. Rate and review the show on your favorite podcasting app of choice, or smash that like and subscribe over there on the YouTubes. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, and basically any place that podcasts can be found. So thanks for listening, everybody. And remember, kids, read more comics. Hector agrees. Read this.
Yes, read more comics.
I'm gonna take all 7 continents as a game of risk. The master of epic duels.